Welcome back. My name is Spooky Scott. I'm a music director at Red Rocks Church. In this video, we are going to be talking about all the basics of music directing in a worship setting. Strictly talking about just music directing. So we are not talking about Ableton yet. I will make lots of other videos about that. But this is basically all the basics to be a music director in a worship setting. Let's get to it. So when it comes to my role as music director, I've really narrowed everything down to two main points. Everything kind of comes down to these two main points, and that is one, communicating to the band, and two, serving the worship leaders and serving the congregation. Now, obviously, there's a lot to that, but everything kind of narrows down to that. So, like, communicating to the band, for example, it's not just during the service, but before service, and making sure they're all prepared and all that stuff. So everything kind of comes down to those two main points. So we're going to dissect each of those points. Okay, point number one is communicating to the band. Like I said, there's a lot that goes into this. So it's not just communicating during the actual service. I'm actually communicating with them, half a week in advance. So I'm in charge of kind of contacting them over Planning Center and making sure that they know exactly what arrangements we're playing and what time to be there. It also involves a lot of communicating to them during rehearsal. So I'll kind of talk through any band jams that we're playing. If we're playing like under the campus pastor or something, I'll be explaining what chord progressions we'll be playing, or if we want to add like an acapella part anywhere, or kind of be talking through all the transitions and stuff. So that's kind of the majority of what I'm doing before we actually play. But once we actually start playing the service, there's a lot more that goes into that, into communicating. All right, so communicating during the actual service. This one is huge. Obviously, you have to do it effectively. You have to do it confidently. You have to do it fast as a music director. So what we've done at Red Rocks Church is we've actually created an online kind of cheat sheet / workshop that we actually hand out to all of our volunteers that explain first off, what they expect, what we expect of them when they are playing at Red Rocks Church, but also a lot of stuff like actual practical things like terminology that we use, that when they hear the music director say something, they'll know it means this. So I will actually put a link in the description to this online resource because it's wonderful, but I'll just get into it a little bit. All right, so one of the first things I put on this cheat sheet is talking about the Nashville number system, actually. And I wrote a little piece. I'll just read it straight from it. It says, if you are not familiar with the Nashville number system, it means we use numbers when talking about chord progressions instead of the name of the actual chord. For example, if we are in the key of E, instead of saying E, B, C sharp minor, A, we would say 1, 5, 6, 4. That just makes it a lot easier. We use the Nashville number system because we found that it is easier and more consistent. Because a song will always have the same number progression no matter how many different keys you play it in. So I would say that is, if you are a music director at a church and you guys are not using the Nashville number system yet, that is the first thing you guys want to switch over your church to. It's very easy. We even have a little chart right here on the online resource that will actually tell you the number for every single chord for every single key that you could playing. So if you're playing like, in the key of A and you do 4, 1, 5, 6, it would obviously be D, A, E, F sharp minor. So there's a little chart that kind of just lays it out all for you. So after that chart, we go into a little bit about the terminology that I use and other MDs at Red Rocks Church use. These terms are very important because maybe there's a moment in your service where you, instead of just going to the next song, you want to kind of let it breathe a little bit. You want to let it sit and create some space where you can create, and be spontaneous and flow to make sure that the band all knows what they're doing together. We use these terms. So I'll just go through a few of the terms that we actually have written down on this workshop. The first one is percentages. So I will use percentages to kind of let the band know how much energy I expect from them and how much more they still have to give. This is very helpful because, especially actually if you are MDing for multiple campuses, because if you are MDing at your campus and your drummer's at like 10% energy, but then you're telling them to build so they get to like 15%, but then maybe a drummer at a different campus is at like 90% and building right there. And you tell them to build, you're telling your drummer to build and keep building, but this guy's building up here. It can be very messy. So we use percentages so that every campus will know kind of how much energy they're supposed to give, and how much they still have left to give, basically. Yeah, and you don't want to keep it, you don't want to keep it like 10%. All right, let's kick it to 15%, 20%, 25%. Because when you're actually vamping behind like the speaker, for example, a lot of times their energy will go like this throughout the end of the service. So you probably want to follow that too. You're like, all right, start at 5%, and maybe they start getting fired up. So you're like, all right, kick it up to like 20%. Give me some toms and stuff here. And then they bring it down. So you're like, all right, back down to like 10%, but still be present with swells and stuff. So that's why percentages are very helpful. Another term that we use a lot is something called lift. We use this especially in moments where one of our campus pastors is giving announcements, or if the pastor himself is giving the message. It basically says, lifting means to bring the energy up for a couple seconds, then bring it back down to where it was. Typically used when flowing behind a speaker, and they say something that initiates applause. That helps it keep it dynamic instead of just like sitting somewhere for the entire time and making it just feel like a plateau. You want to be dynamic. You want to follow the energy that the message is given off, that the speaker is given in the message. So lifting helps, give it those little bumps of, energy that it needs. Some of these terms are pretty straightforward. So we have something called a tom groove. Obviously, that's like the drums just playing something on the toms, more like a syncopated rhythm. So it's like boom, doom, 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 something like that. We have a term called straight build. So that's if we're building and adding energy. When we fall into straight build, that instead of like adding those syncopated toms, we go in straight to like a bump, 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 and the entire band is kind of building on the grid instead of having any syncopation. Again, that just helps like change dynamics a little bit while you're building and stuff. So this term I actually use a lot. It's called quarter note hits. Basically, this one is very helpful for when you're already big and you want to keep it big, but you want to like change the dynamics a little bit. Basically, when I call out for quarter note hits, the entire band will play as hard as they can, but just on the quarter note. So for drums, that's, crashes and kick, just on the quarter notes. So it's like, psh, 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 or like, the guitars are just strum those chords on the quarter notes, So that really helps to keep the energy still at 100%, but it changes the dynamic a little bit. So you can, it doesn't feel like you're just playing the same thing over and over again. And what's really cool is actually after the quarter note hits, you can actually kind of fall back into a little straight build again and then go big again. So, when the worship leader decides to sing the bridge, for the 10th time, repeated, that helps you keep the energy up, but change the dynamic a little bit. So it's not just like you're listening to the same thing over and over again. So there's always little things like that you can do to keep the same energy, but change the dynamic a little bit with the band. Again, some of these are pretty straightforward. We have one called drum break, which is basically just when all the instrumentalists will stop playing, but the drums will keep playing. And that's usually when we're on like a big chorus and we want to keep singing over the drums, and then the band can slowly come back in, build up. We have something called Acapella, which is basically no one plays at that point. Everyone cuts out right at the downbeat, and the singers will, just sing with 100% power, a 20-part harmony or whatever, Okay, so these two kind of go hand in hand. Breakdown and trash can. When you're big and you want to bring it down, there are two ways you can bring it down. One is a breakdown, or what I say bring it down. It basically means for the entire band to come down to about 5 to 10% energy again, but you still are playing those same chord progressions, so that maybe the singers can sing low chorus and then end it, or if they want to build it up again, you can really go anywhere from there. And then a trash can is basically, you're taking the song and you're throwing it in the trash can. You're done with it. It's basically just ending with big energy and then swelling out at the end. Yeah. So those are just some of the terms that we use. Again, I'll put the link to that in the description. But besides that, it's mostly helping out with transitions, making sure they're really smooth transitions between each song. Usually I like to call out what song is next and what key we're playing it in, especially on worship nights when you have like 15 different songs that you're playing and stuff. So yeah, and what really helps with transitioning songs is, either swelling out of the last song, swelling into the downbeat of the next song, or maybe if they both start low, you can just kind of keep it low. If you're in the same key, that really helps because it doesn't even feel like you're going to a different song. So just thinking about little things to make those transitions faster and smoother. So that's basically the gist of point one. Point two is serving the worship leaders and the congregation. I'm definitely going to look mostly at serving the worship leaders right now, though. Obviously, you can serve them beforehand by doing things like making sure they have the correct keys to the songs that we're going to be playing. And also going over hand signals can help a lot. Before we actually start the service, so you know that when they give you a certain hand signal, it means to call out something specific. But when it comes to a live service, you need to be sure that you are reading the worship leader very well. This is very important, equally as important as communicating to the band, because those two go hand in hand. Again, you are the music director. You are the glue between the worship leaders and the band. Okay, you are telling the band where you believe the worship leader wants to go, so everyone is one fluid band together. So what that looks like when I'm music directing is that 90% of the time when I'm on stage, I'm looking at the person actually leading the song, okay? I'm looking to follow them. So anything that they give me, like little inflections in their voice, if they're giving more energy, I want to tell the band to give more energy. You can also tell with just general body language, but the biggest thing what I'm looking for is the hand signals that they give me. Again, you want to establish all these hand signals ahead of time so you know exactly what they're saying. But this is the biggest thing that will help you tell the band where to go. So on our online workshop, we have also included a bunch of hand signal gestures and what they mean. I'll just go through a few. Forming a C is obviously course. For bridge, I've seen a lot, but at Red Rocks, we use the hang loose sign. So that means bridge for us. When they do this, it typically means that they want to continue what we're doing. Or if we're building, they want to continue building. But this basically means repeat. Let's see, we also have, if they do something like this, it means they want more energy. If they do this or this, it means they want to either bring it down if we're already big, or they want to keep it low if we're already low. This basically just means low. If they do this, it means that they want to trash can the song if we're big. If we're low, they can also do this. It means basically just to end the song and move on to the next song. We also have this signal. If they are pointing towards the ground, so it's more like next to their body, but if they're pointing towards the ground, that basically means from either the top of the verse, because sometimes they'll want to like let the verse run through a few times and just kind of, vamp on it before they actually start singing. So when they give that signal, it means to start from the top of the verse and they'll start singing. Or if we've been vamping on like bridge chords out of a message and we haven't actually started the song yet, and sometimes they want to keep vamping on the bridge, they'll give me that signal to start from the top of the song. We also have, if they point towards the drummer, that means drum break, basically. Yeah. And we have a new one that we just came out with. It's holding 3 fingers up like this, Katniss Everdeen style. That basically means acapella. So they want the entire band to cut out, and they're going to do their 20-part harmony, like I said before. So those are just a few of the hand gestures that we use. Now, however, they won't always give you hand gestures. At least at our church, they don't. So a lot of times you're going to have to make calls last second. If you want to stay on a bridge or go to bridge chords or do quarter note hits or something, So a lot of times you will have to be creative and thinking really fast on your feet. But you have to make a call and you have to make it confidently, which kind of brings me to my last sub point, which is confidence. So you need to MD with confidence. I can never stress this enough to music directors. A lot of times they'll feel like they haven't really been given a lot of authority, or they don't want to like step on worship leaders' toes or something like this. So they MD a little bit more shy, and that does not help with the band. So even if you're thinking in your brain, like say you're on a chorus progression and you want to move to a bridge progression, in your mind, if you're thinking like, I think I want to go to the bridge, but I don't know if it's going to work, what you don't want to do is be like, let's maybe go to the bridge, because the band isn't going to follow you. You need to say it with confidence. You need to say, all right, we're going to go to the bridge chords here. And even if the worship leader is still singing the chorus, then, you know, it's a tiny little mistake that honestly no one will know. And let's be honest, in worship music, you can kind of switch those progressions anyways. So yes, speak confidently. Okay, I cannot stress that enough. Okay, because even if you do make a mistake, you want to make a mistake confidently and together, instead of just kind of having the band just kind of like fall apart in shambles over time. And when you make that mistake, then you learn from it. Okay, we're music directors. We make mistakes all the time. I do every week. But the more you do it, the better you get at it. And then once you make that mistake, it's really helpful to have little debrief sessions after every worship service, actually, because then you can kind of talk to the worship leaders and be like, what worked, what didn't, and then you can learn. So always make sure you're leaving room to grow and learn. That's very important. So that's basically music directing 101 in a worship setting, you know, the basics of it, at least that I could think of right now. I'm sure I'll make a lot more videos, but feel free to like reach out if you guys have any questions. Engage with the video however you want. I don't care. You don't have to subscribe. I'm not in it for the numbers. I'm just here to share my knowledge with you guys. So yeah, hope you guys have a great rest of your day.